I think this is a topic that we could be in here for a long time talking about. I love that we had a session just before this with the same topic. So that was very good to see. So this is not about me. I'm just here to facilitate. This is about all of you. And I know all of us have one way, shape, or form involved in events. And so when Liz said, "Oh, you can lead this session," I was like, "Can I just stay behind the scenes and produce, please?" But here I am. I am very excited to be here. I'm Jennifer Clark. I have an event planning business in South Mississippi. I'm usually the only one in the room from Mississippi on all of these events. I don't know why. We do events here, but my company typically did in-person events until now. So obviously everybody has had to shift. I don't know if you noticed in the messages in the cadence in the feed for today, Diana had put in a I guess a poll, and it said the word that's going to be mentioned most is going to be hybrid or pivot, and it was like 90% hybrid was what everybody voted. So it's like last year's word was pivot and this year's word is hybrid, and it's so weird where we were a year ago. So I am very excited to be just here, and I'd love to hear from you. All these names I'm seeing in here are people I've heard from, and a lot of you I've listened to a lot of the things you have to say. And so I think this could be a really, really great conversation. And we have note takers who are going to be taking notes so we can solve the world right here in this room. This is the next big thing. So I'm not going to take up any more time. I would love to just open up the floor and just get this conversation started. Hybrid, what does it mean? How can we do it? Does it have to be synchronous? Can it be asynchronous? How are we going to do this in this new world we're living in? So let's start. Who wants to just start this conversation? We can just be very casual. Let's see.
Well, I'll pipe right up.
Yay!
I think hybrid to be effective, hybrid means that both an in-person audience and an online audience are designed for. It's not an in-person event where somebody just has a camera up on the speaker. It's not an online event where there just happens to be some people watching from a live venue someplace. It's actually a created and curated experience for two audiences, and where it differs from event to event is how much it's weighted to the online, and not even weighted, maybe weighted's the wrong word. What material is being really pushed to the online community versus what material and what experience is pushed to the live community, and really taking a very concerted effort to make both communities feel like they are winning. Like if I attended an online event, I am so glad I attended online because that was amazing. Oh, I'm so glad I went in person because boy, that experience was just terrific. That's how you want your people to be leaving.
Hi, I'm Sheila. I'll add that I think PCMA has been doing this really well for a very long time. They have included a virtual component of their event, Convening Leaders, for probably 10 years. And I think that the online community has been a really cool experience. And they started using it as like a teaser to get people to come to the in-person conference. And I think that works. At least it used to, because people knew they were missing out on a lot because they weren't showcasing the whole event. So I've participated both in person and virtually for PCMA, and they do a really good job of connecting the virtual event attendees. And I think, as you were saying, Victoria, that's really important for those people to feel like they have a community and have made worthwhile connections through the event.
Yeah. I'll jump in. Hi, everybody. I'm John. But I totally agree with what Victoria said, is that it has to be engaging for both. And the way we can engage those people online with the people that are in person, I think that's going to be a winning hybrid event. It's not going to be easy. It's going to require a lot of good technology and bandwidth, but with 5G in most of our event spaces now, it should be able to work.
So, hi everyone. I'm calling from London in Europe. I have to be maybe a little controversial here. I have to say I'm still not fully convinced with hybrid. I represent an association in Europe. I think, yes, it's a big buzzword. I think at the end of the day, we need to be thinking about our communities and what is best for them, and not just leaping into hybrid because it's a buzzword and everybody's talking about it. So I really think it comes back to your purpose and what is better for your community. And so it could be a fully online, it could be fully in person, or it could be a series of smaller in-person, regional. So anyway, that's my 2 pence worth.
I don't think you're being controversial at all, Sharon. I think that you're stating the facts, right? Not everyone may do a hybrid. Some may continue to be just digital. Some may be in person. And you could do the spoke concept where you have people in a conference room somewhere, and then people are in other rooms all around the globe watching. I just think it's whatever people's comfort levels are. And obviously the laws and rules and regulations vary from country to country, and even within countries, they vary too. So the answer, as we've heard in so many of our classes, it depends. It really does depend on your goals and objectives.
And budget.
And budget.
And
That's
human
the big
resources.
That's a good question. What does hybrid really look like in terms of budget? There's big budgets for all sorts of kinds of events, from large to small, that we're used to. But when that is translated to hybrid, what does it look like? What does that budgeting process look like? What does success look like for the budget?
And build on that, how can you articulate the value of the hybrid experience? Because we can apply money and budgets and everything to it, but how does that remote attendee validate the money that they've spent against the outcomes that they got? And that applies for all stakeholders in the event as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So I'll add that I feel like for smaller organizations, hybrid is very cost prohibitive at this point. I did an event in last November that was about 8 people in person at the board, and everyone else was virtual, and it cost like $6,000 for a 2-hour meeting. And the hotel didn't know what they were doing. It was super, super stressful for me. So I have suggested to the hotels in my area that they dedicate like 1 or 2 meeting spaces in their facility to be set up for hybrid. They would make so much money with investing in that infrastructure for groups to be able to come in and have that space. That being said, I have encouraged my church to consider hosting hybrid events. Jennifer and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. My church has been streaming services for years, and we've enhanced all of that stuff in the last 1.5 years and have like 4 cameras now instead of 1, and like a soundboard and all this amazing stuff. And we're totally set up to do hybrid events. And we just need to market that. And that can be like a revenue stream to make up for like people not coming in the door for church. So
especially your
guess who's
weekday
in charge
event.
of that project? This girl.
I've used a church for an event. Now it's the best time to use it, because now they have upgraded all of their technology. Certain events you can't do in a church, obviously, but most educational events you can, and it's good revenue. And all of their tech team are well versed in how to get things going. They do it every Sunday.
There are some amazing technical productions for services. In New York City, they use professional production companies, and there's like, boom cameras and, like 3 or 4 different angles, and it's well produced.
They're doing it right. We should have a session on how the churches are doing this.
Getting back to budget, what we're finding is that it is almost like planning 2 separate events. in that you have your in-person and then you have your virtual. And what we're going to start to see, I think, will be companies like PSAV, which they've already done, bring in their own virtual component, so that while they're in most of the hotels, they'll also have this ability to stream it virtually as well. And it won't be as expensive, but of course they're going to add different producers, additional people and fees and so forth.
I love that you mentioned that, John, because I too feel that we've been talking about this, because I didn't really start in the event space until, because I started with live streaming and live broadcasting. One of the things that we've often said, if we kind of do any kind of hybrid event, people have to realize there's two events happening at the same time. One is a virtual component, right? And that's a virtual production team. And the other one is the in-person on location. I think the challenges of having a hybrid event, whether it's cost or location right now, is just not having the right production team for the budget, or not having the right production team that have the skill set to kind of match with that budget, because it can be an all, TV production studio crew kind of, on location production for the in-person, or you can literally have, like I work with a producer out of Ohio who just does 100% mobile, production, and it is amazing. And I think it's just that people have this mindset right now that I'm fearful of what my streaming will look like, right? Because they're not working with the right virtual events producers. So yeah, that's my take on the hybrid event.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Jeff, on that. Hey, everyone, this is Shiva. What Jeff said, absolutely right. And also when it comes to the virtual events, hybrid events from my end, I feel like, most of our customers, what they did is they do have live events with 6,000, 10,000 customers happening right now, like March Madness and SummerSlam and whatnot. So all they do is just give us the streaming link, and that streaming link, the experience is already built out. If you, as you're talking about, if you go with a platform where you have to build out everything to for your unique experiences, it's going to be pretty expensive. But if you go with a platform where, hey, it's like you put in the information, it acts as a registration system. It acts for in-person check-in, check-out apps, and also the virtual component, that is the 3D experiences with chats and everything all together, including, I do not think it would break your bank. So that's my take on the hybrid events.
And I think the other component of a hybrid event is working with the right team who knows how to manage the production side of things, all the tech stuff, and then the engagement part, which is really the human side of things, right? Because if an in-person event, you can just like, hey, Jennifer, hi, John, and all that stuff. You kind of do that in real time. But, one of the challenges as a virtual event producer, one of the things that I see a lot is people don't know how to be the bridge and glue between the production, which is such a cool platform, and bringing the human side of things. So that's where I think anyone producing like a hybrid event need to understand, and the team that they work with. And I talk about this a lot in my shows. I say virtual event producers need to also have the understanding of the humanization component of the hybrid event. If you lose that, you lose the traffic, you lose the attention, you lose the community. And that's such a big challenge. If they're doing, like churches doing, weekly events, they're building the community within already. But if you're just a first timer hybrid event producer, you're just, okay, let's just try this out, because we think it's great and cool, but not really ready yet, because maybe your production team isn't skilled enough in the human component of things. That may be a huge challenge to kind of do a hybrid event.
The other big part.
Ooh, go ahead.
Sorry, Jennifer. I was just to add, the other big part to all of this is how do you engage the people online with the people in person? And I think that's the big win if we can figure that out. Go ahead, Rachel.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I love that you mentioned the human component. Hi, guys, I'm Rachel. And the human component being, you know, we've definitely mastered the art of the webinar, and getting into the space where it's that one to many, but also getting and bridging the gap with the audience to audience participation. That's the biggest point, that I feel like is our next step of optimization. Like, where can we bridge the gap between, yes, the virtual audience and the live audience. But as I've been exploring with things like Clubhouse, where people can have that immediate interaction, those have been really, really great ways to bridge the gap when people are in between a live event at, let's say, an expo, and they can just go and listen to or interact in an engagement, like a networking segment that's happening on Clubhouse that's like specifically for, like, let's say the event planner expo coming up, or this one that we have right now, the Techies Talk, right? So that's something that can engage people that are either in attendance or not fully in attendance, but are in a sense of community. That is a really great way to do something like that. But I really think that that hyper focus on that human aspect of getting the attendees to really connect with one another and find integrate the best flat platform for that. Cheers.
This is Tess. Hi, everyone. I really struggle with why we as event profs want to seek an absolute answer when, thanks, Anthony, but when our whole goal and objective, when we studied for the CMP, or we studied to be who we are, was focused on goals. So every goal is going to be different, right? Every outcome is going to be different. And the process should be based on who is going to consume the content that we're designing it to be. So I really can't, I just don't understand, why are we asking for an answer of the definition of hybrid when it should fit the goal of what you're producing for, period.
I love you, Tess. You're so good.
I love you. I love you.
Yeah, you're spot on, Tess, right? It all depends.
It does. And I think we should have more conversations around consortiums, collaborations. How can I take my strength and put it with your weakness, and how we can help each other to get the goals that we've chosen to be better. So yes, Seth, you do need a good production team. You do need that glue in between, someone who can see a production and understands producing, along with someone who knows how to engage, along with someone knows who has to design the experience, and someone who knows how to put the logistics together. It's not a one person, and it's not a one answer. So instead of us, what I think, wasting time on those things, why aren't we talking more about how I need to take this group of 25 people who have beautiful gifts to the world and use those appropriately?
You're singing my tune. You're singing my music, Tess. That was exactly what I said. Did I say that to you this morning? Rachel and I kind of like, we've come into the same space, and I just talked to her this morning. I don't want to do it all. I want to find the best people that do the best thing that they do and help them bring them into a collective and collaborative effort, because I think there's more to than just one person or 5 people doing it, because different people are just great at different things. It's just be great to work and collaborate with other people. So thanks for bringing that up, Tess.
Oh, no problem. I do. I think we should do that. And didn't mean to change everything, but just, hopefully we can exercise the other piece on hybrid. What can you bring to the table around that? And it is going to be hybrid for the rest of our lives, period. Right. Because you cannot say it's one or the other. That will never exist. It's always, I say it's always about percentages. How much of face-to-face are you going to have versus how much of a digital experience engagement, right? It's just how much, and it moves around and it gives you more flexibility. And no, you can be very low budget with it. You can walk into a room, turn on television set, and boom, and something has streamed to you, and just have people with popcorn around, and they can bring their own popcorn. So it doesn't really have to be this high-end piece. It can be everything in between. So, off my soapbox.
I think as an industry, we've kind of been exploring this as we started talking about communities. Everybody got on board, especially this year, and started, okay, we're not just managing events, we're gathering people together around content and topics and movements and communities and all those good things. And I think to build on Tessa's points, I think we're now shifting into understanding ecosystems. And I'll get maybe too much like allegory here, but you know, understanding when we're bringing these communities together in spaces, whether it's online or face-to-face or whatever it is that ecosystem healthy for what that community needs to achieve? Or are we throwing a fish into a tree and a bird into a lake and not getting results because we're not understanding who our community is, what's the healthiest ecosystem for them to exist in, and then crafting events in all modes of delivery around supporting that ecosystem's growth and development over time?
Yes, Anthony. And then just like Barbara said, and we've said so many times, that requires you asking the people what they want and listening to them and putting that into place, not guessing what they want.
Validation.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of folks are over surveyed right now. What are some ways to get that input, get that validation, understand what your folks want without sending them another survey monkey?
After surveys.
Hey, the best way that we do it, I'm with Pickhead Cartoon, so we're a virtual hybrid in-person entertainment company, and the best way that we do that is on client calls, like just asking the client themselves, what do they like? What do they not like? What do they think that their guests crave in engagement, and how do they want and prefer to communicate, and what do they want to give as gifts? Any of the questions we usually get the answers. I love the visual representation, Anthony, and that just asking open-ended questions is how we get it. Just on those calls is the best way that we've been able to do it thus far.
And ask them how they want to give you that information. Don't send them a survey. Have them clap their hands, stomp their feet, snap their fingers. Ask them what they prefer to do.
I think there's quite a focus on how to have the on-site people, let's say, engage with the people virtually, but I don't know that we're approaching that the right way. I mean, I put myself in a position, if I'm in a room with people, I don't necessarily want to be connecting with people online. So, and vice versa, maybe, you know, if you're online, you might just prefer to connect with other people online because you have that thing in common with them. So, of course, it does always come back to purpose and your objective, but I think maybe we sometimes overstress about that, and that, you know, maybe, as you say, going back to people and actually asking them what they would like, maybe we'll find that they actually don't need that. Maybe those audience don't even need to be synchronous. So just putting it out there.
It's an interesting thought having sort of two tracks running at the same time with a content as the center pinning, right? What's happening in the virtual space, what's happening in the real world space, and how the content is the bridge back and forth. I think there's interesting places where stuff can weave together, right? Like, where are the opportunities for those attendees to potentially connect with each other? But to your point, Sharon, maybe it's not sort of a full forced 100% everything has to feel connected, or 90% everything has to feel connected. You can still have those sort of parallel tracks running with, you know, connection points along the way. Think of like a helix, right? Where they sort of come together at certain points, share the content. Maybe there's a session where they're shared again, but they can sort of exist on two paths.
Perhaps hybrid could also be in two different phases. So you perhaps have more people online together, like all together online, but then you bring people together maybe after that for things that you are not so easy to do online, some brainstorming, or, you know, breakouts, or some things that are more interactive. So going back to my asynchronous kind of idea, but I don't know what the take on hybrid.
Yeah.
And we should also think about the fact that, the virtual component allows us to expand the reach, the timing of the content. So now instead of being available only for 3 days, 5 days, it's available for 6 months to a year or whatever we decide to do. But that's really important because they can, if there's concurrent sessions, they can go back and watch. They can meet people online that may, or have these communities that Anthony mentioned before. So again, there's lots of opportunity for the virtual component too, not just for during the live event.
Yeah, I was gonna actually just bounce back to what Anthony was saying about ecosystems. I spent a lot of my career in the advertising agency world, the marketing world, before sort of moving into the virtual event space. And we used to talk about ecosystems every day. I mean, that's sort of how marketers think, right? And sort of how the content pushes out and all the different channels and places. And so I find it sometimes inherent for my thinking in what I do day to day, but like not necessarily the way everybody approaches stuff. And I think it's a really fascinating model to think about as it relates to building out your community, certainly, and building out the events that that community engages with, whether that's an internal community of employees, whether that's a broader community of, fans, or a customer event where they're, servicing their community. But to think about that ecosystem as what are the different components that plug in together, as opposed to trying to find a singular solution, which I believe somebody was mentioning earlier. I'm looking for her in the chat here because I forgot her name off the top of my head, but she was saying before, like, it's not one size fits all, right? You really do need to build the right ecosystem for that particular need.
That was TESS.
TESS, thank you.
Great. I hate to say this, we could stay in here forever, but we have to end. This is great. Tomorrow, in fact, as Tess had mentioned something about putting people in the right place, that have the right skill sets. Tomorrow, my session like this is about a team and when can you outsource and all of that. And so that would be great if you want to join me again tomorrow at the session for tomorrow's hack session. So I know we can't change the world in 20 minutes, but definitely a lot of food for thought. And I appreciate all of you. Now we get to go into the some really, really great sessions. So you can pick which of your 4 thought leader roundtables will be. And then I'll hope to see you later. Have a great day, guys.